I'm Julie Zenner, along with Dennis Anderson. Here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Okay, Duluth is in the running to win a $5 million energy prize from Georgetown University. Now it's up to residents to buy into the idea of reducing energy use.
What were the top economic stories of 2014 and what can we expect in 2015? A panel of economic experts is here with thoughts on the local economy.
And we'll have the week's business headlines and a story that was in the news 25 years ago.
All this and more coming up next on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. Denny, I'd like to say that most of us are pleased with the recent warm-up.
Oh, I love a January thaw. One in February would be good. A long one in March? Yeah, right.
I think that we'll probably have a little more cold weather.
Yeah, I suspect so. Yeah.
All right, but we do have a lot to talk about tonight, so let's get started.
All right, thank you very much, Julie. Welcome, everyone. If you are a resident of the city of Duluth, you have a challenge to consider. The city is one of 50 around the United States that is in the running to win a $5 million prize. The city that does the best job reducing its electricity and natural gas use over the next 2 years will win. And it starts with local residents pitching in to reduce energy use at home. Now, here to tell us more is Jodi Slick, CEO of Equilibrium 3 and chair of the local campaign. And Jennifer Julsrud is the vice president of the Duluth City Council. Thank you both for being here tonight. Jodi, tell us more about the competition. Duluth was just recently notified that it's a semifinalist.
Yep, we actually started this process back in August of 2013 when we submitted a letter of interest, and over the last year and a half have gone from being an initial community to a quarterfinalist and now a competing semifinalist.
So how does this work?
Well, the way that it works is that Georgetown University competition will compare Duluth's energy use from 2013 and 2014 to what we use in 2015 and 2016. So we actually have to show a reduction, not just that we're working on reducing our energy. And it'll compare our electricity and our natural gas in both our households and in certain kind of city and community operations. So how much the city of Duluth uses, how much our schools use, and how much our housing authority uses.
And the city that uses, I guess, the biggest reduction wins the prize?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that because, as you can imagine, every community is slightly different. Mm-hmm. And so what we really want in Duluth is 2 years from now to be in the top 10. Because if we make it in the top 10 due to our energy reductions, then 75% of the final judging actually comes down to how innovative you were, how the solutions that you came up with, are they scalable, are they replicable? Because what they don't want is they don't want people gaming a system like this. I mean, we joke about just sending Duluthians during the winter to someplace warm, and we could save a lot of energy that way, but it wouldn't necessarily be something that would save energy across the country. So it really does come down to, can you solve a stuck problem? And right now in our country, we waste over half of the energy we generate. And so that's the stuck problem we have to figure out, and I'm betting on Duluth.
And Councilor, do you think that Duluth has any advantages over the other communities in terms of where it is in energy efficiency right now and how it thinks about energy efficiency?
Well, I think people are hungry for this kind of change and this kind of conversation, because I think there's a lot of interest in our green spaces and our love for our clean water and our Lake Superior, and I think people are ready to take it to another step. And when you think about the loss of energy that we have in our homes just due to heat loss, if we were able to retain that money and keep that money locally, that could have a great benefit on people's pocketbooks, and that's a benefit. So that's a win.
Sure.
So we're winning by just being a part of the competition.
Yeah. Councilor, Duluth is the only city in the state in competition. How did we get that far?
You know, Do you want to take that one?
Sure. This competition is for communities that have between 5,000 and 250,000 people, because they really see with over 60% of the people in the U.S. living in that size community, that's where the solution comes from. And so the process to date has been, first of all, needing to get a whole bunch of partners on board. A community could not be competing unless you have your utilities on board, unless you have your city on board, your schools on board, et cetera. So we needed to assemble the right team that wanted to participate. And then we actually had to submit a community energy plan that talked about what our strategies would be. And they were looking for innovation there. And I think Duluth has had a great record in energy efficiency in this community, and I think they're betting on us too.
Now, is this dash to the cash part of the strategy that was developed? Could you talk about that a little bit, and what some of those maybe no-cost, low-cost things that people could do to get on board are possible in homes?
Well, what we've learned from the Department of Energy is that behavioral changes account for a small percentage of energy reduction in people's homes. So what we're aiming for is not just behavioral changes, but retrofits to people's homes. And then we're looking at the larger community. How do our municipal systems work, and how can they be more efficient? How can our municipal buildings be more efficient? But it's the residential piece that I think is going to be very interesting in this competition.
And talk about that.
Yeah, well, first of all, one of the reasons why we're doing the dash to the cash is because this is going to be a long competition. It's 2 years, and it's hard to keep people's attention for 2 years. We do think, however, if you're going to run a marathon, you have a better chance if you're leading at the beginning. And with Duluth, right now is the time of the year we use the most energy. And so unlike a warm community that really has time to kind of put together their strategies and implement them this summer, we have to be working pretty hard right now. So the dash to the cash looks at what are those things that people can do that are low to no cost. And it can be things like taking your thermostat and moving that down a little bit when you're sleeping at night, those type of things. Free and low cost measures in 5 different areas. And if people join in the dash to the cash over the next 50 days, they could be saving 5% on their energy or more right off the bat. And one thing we know about Duluth is if we could save just 6% of our energy, we would be saving $5 million a year. We'd like the $5 million prize, but it's definitely within our power just to save that money in our economy every year by simple actions.
So how do you track people who are trying to help you dash to the cash? It sounds like a tremendous amount of record keeping and data collection. What do people do to make sure that their part is actually included?
Well, that's one of the things that is unique about this competition. Oftentimes people have to kind of show, 23 people did this and 107 people did this. In the end with this competition, the big metric is, for example, Minnesota Power in Duluth in 2013 and 2014 sold a certain amount of energy in the residential sector. How much did they sell in 2015 and 2016? It comes down to how much we actually use. And so if that means we had a whole bunch of people change to LEDs, which would be great, the payback is wonderful there, and we have a whole bunch of people do retrofits, there's a whole mix, but the big thing is we need to be buying less energy because we're using less energy.
If Duluth wins the $5 million, what is that money to be used for?
We talked this summer, and we decided to put it into an energy trust, a Duluth Energy Trust that will have a board of directors, and they will then determine what projects in the community make sense and where that money should go. So it'll fund future energy projects for the city.
Why is it important for the city and other public institutions to kind of take a lead in this too? You mentioned looking at things that you're doing in municipal buildings and so on.
One of the light bulb moments that I had this summer when we were meeting with our Swedish sister cities, Växjö, Sweden was here, was the fact that they said that a lot of the changes that occurred in their community over the course of decades was an intentional decision by the leadership saying, we're going to make this change and we're going to make it happen. And so that was something that set off the new director of NRI, Ralph Wernberg, who has been a part of company like DuPont at the time that made a conscious and intentional effort to reduce down their waste down to zero. And they did it in a period of 3 years, and it really took the leadership of that community making a decision, the leadership of that company. So one of the great things about the city being involved is the fact that we have, Jodi and I in particular, have the capacity as people that are interested in serving our neighbors and serving the community and building the community up, can move these organizations, all of the organizations that are a partner in our team, and move them beyond the organizational boundaries so that we're working together and thinking about what is in the best interest of Duluth citizens and utility customers, and how can we sort of move out of our silos and work together.
We only have about 30 more seconds, but there are incentives available, financial incentives for people to make some of these changes in their homes.
Absolutely. There are rebates, there are low interest loans, there are some limited grants available, and tax credits. And we recommend that people check out duluthenergy.com. That's where they can learn about the incentives, as well as we can help people get energy audits and bundle things specific to their needs.
Sure. Jodi, Jennifer, thank you very much for telling the story.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
for being here.
Thank you.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
Police say a lone gunman walked up to this door, fired a shotgun blast, and fled the scene. 3 female office employees were in the area at the time, but none were injured in the shooting.
We've had no prior warning or any type of threat of anything like this would happen.
Within minutes, police had the building sealed off. Because no one actually saw the gunman leave the building, officers had to make sure he still wasn't hiding somewhere inside. Offices were locked up. Employees inside were told not to open their doors for anyone who wasn't a uniformed police officer. But after 3 hours of searching, the suspect was not found. United Healthcare says it will add security officers immediately to protect its employees. The identity of the gunman is still unknown. The motive of the shooting also a mystery. Tonight, police are continuing to investigate. John Schottel, KDLH News.
Well, by most measures, 2014 was a good economic year for our region. Unemployment was down to its lowest level in a decade, and plummeting gas prices late in the year benefited consumers and shipping companies. But can the region's economy keep up the momentum in 2015? Already there are clouds gathering over the mining industry, and the region's timber industry continues to suffer. Well, we've brought together a group of economic experts for a look back and a look ahead. Tony Barrett is an economics professor at the College of St. Scholastica. Sakib Mahmud is a professor of sustainable management and economics in the UWS Business and Economics Department. And Ron Brochu is the editor and publisher of BusinessNorth, the region's business newspaper. The business newspaper. That's it. Well, thanks so much for coming in. A couple of you have been here a number of times. What, 20, 25 years, something like that? So Tony, compared to the other 24 years, what is 2014 economically? How would you sum it up?
I hadn't really thought of it that way, but this might be the best year economically in the time I've been up here. I moved up here in 1990, August of 1990, and the region was still recovering from the 81-82 recession, going through that transformation. But things have really, the recession's behind us now, and this has been an extremely good year. Yeah.
Ron, what do you see as maybe the high points of the year in terms of strong sectors or places that we really are advancing?
Construction was very strong, commercial, industrial type construction. And that tends to trickle down into a lot of parts of the economy. So it really fed a lot of money into everyone's pockets, and as a consequence, all the workers were spending, and it just really pumped up things locally.
Is there a dark cloud run over the mining industry in this state right now, and is there need for some worry?
I don't know if worry would be the right word, but yes, there is a dark cloud. The price of pellets has dropped very low. The margins that the taconite companies make are much lower than they had been in recent years, and how that plays out is undetermined. There could be maybe some consolidation within the industry, similar to what happened to maybe the paper industry a decade or two ago, and it's kind of hard to predict, but it could have a ripple effect.
One of the big stories for 2015 is Essar Steel. If they get online in production of taconite at capacity that they're talking about, that's a 15 to 20% increase, 15% increase in capacity in the Iron Range at a time when demand for taconite's low. That's a bad timing.
Right
but
now, is that a big if, Tony?
Well, it's online. They've got their funding. They're building. They say they're going to be producing taconite at the end of the year. So I'll believe it when I see it, but it's pretty credible.
A little bit of a bait and switch with the steel making
Yeah,
plant, but
yeah, and they may still do that. I always thought that was a rather remarkable dream, but hey, it's jobs.
Sakib,
all tied to that oil prices, as as we can put that, like lower oil prices now, it might affect that iron ore industry.
Yeah, sure.
But I can imagine, like it's like a bit of competition going on. Like so, there will be with their reserve. They don't want to reduce their supply. They want to reduce the competition, and that's what my take. And they want to probably make sure, like the fracking industry, like in the USA and Canada, because it costs. If you look at the cost per barrel, at least for the fracking industry is higher, and for compared to Saudi Arabia, if you consider, for them they can go below $40 per barrel.
Yeah.
So my guess is like they will try to continue with that process for a certain period of time, but they can't sustain it. At certain point the oil price will go up. Again, we'll have some bit of demand for that iron ore, and I think the mining industry might be benefited as a result of that.
Sakib, how do you look at the economy of Wisconsin compared with the economy of Minnesota? Is it as good, worse, better?
I think Minnesota did better, in terms of the manufacturing sector. If you look at the unemployment rate, Minnesota has 3.9%. Wisconsin has 5.4%, which is, of course, if you look at the national, it is 5.8. So looking at Minnesota, they did better in manufacturing sector, and in Wisconsin, it did reasonably well, but not like maybe the pre-recession level, if you consider, right. And it's more relying on the agriculture sector. But looking at Minnesota, I would say Minnesota did better here.
Is the forest industry changing in both states?
The forest industry's been under siege
for a while.
For 20 years, 30 years, and that's not going to change. That's a global industry, and it's excess capacity, and with the economies around the world. Now, the U.S. economy is doing great, but with demand around the world down, it's going to be a challenging year.
Mm-hmm. What about biofuels? Is there a strong opportunity there for some of the forest products companies to maybe take advantage of that at this point?
I think there is. We've seen SAPI getting into, I guess, cellulose. It's not biofuel, but it's a different use of forest products, and I think we'll see the Blandon mill getting into that. There are some other projects in the works in the biofuels area, and of course, the low price of petroleum it could affect some of those projects too. It won't necessarily stop them, but it could delay them. The development may not go full speed if they know they can't enter the market with a product that competes with petroleum at this price.
DETA recently concluded, gentlemen, that Duluth lost population between 2000 and 2010. What needs to happen here locally in the Twin Ports to attract young people and keep them here?
Well, you're talking to an economist, so the answer's obvious. We need more jobs. I mean, we need, and I really do, I sense that momentum. We do have high-skilled industries, looking the architectural and engineering industries in particular. I was surprised by the report that we had lost populations, because certainly looking at it from a college professor, my students who want to stay in Duluth are now able to do that. They weren't able to do that 10 years ago. They just weren't professional, entry-level jobs.
Where are we seeing the jobs increase?
Turn to Ron on that one.
I think in the professional areas, and maybe, you know, I'm not quite sure about the service area, medical, government, to some extent, that's kind of leveled off. I think where we're not seeing it increase much is in the areas where maybe folks who don't have a higher education. Those kind of jobs, I think, are hard to find here.
Sakib, do you see that the region is doing a pretty good job from an educational standpoint of training the workers up who are going to be needed for the jobs that are being created? We've got a lot of baby boomers who are starting to retire now, or in the throes of retiring, and you know, we need to fill those jobs.
Right,
is there that synergy?
Like, you know, there's a projection in 2040, like 40% of the population would be represented by age group 65 and over. And of course, we need to do something prior to that if we want to make sure you know, we have jobs for the young generation. We have in-migration rather than out-migration. And I agree with Ron here and also with Tony, like we need to identify those sectors, and there should be a good communication between the prospective employers and, you know, of course, the students. You know that, you know, who, you know, that make sure there's a supply and demand, you know, that gap is reduced, and so that once the students graduate, they will get jobs here. And we need to think about like what kind of areas we can focus, maybe more professional and technical services, or the computer related you know, jobs, if we can generate that kind of thing here. And the construction, of course, there, but if you think about, okay, we need to match, it's all about the matching principle, like okay, what kind of jobs that, you know, considering our region, our topography, demographics, what kind of jobs we can, you know, will ensure that the students will graduate, they will get it right away. So I think that need to have a bit of communication, you know, this is required. Not only the, you know, we are talking about the employees and the universities, the educators, but also trying to find out like the next 10 years trend or 20 years trend, what kind of jobs you might be looking for to have that competitive edge.
Now, we did get some predictions from the two of you who were here last year, and we'd like to revisit those and see how you did. I think over those 24 years, you've been getting more and more vague every year. You know?
I remember that comment. I'll try to be more specific this year. I've been thinking.
Let's see what Tony had to say last year.
You know, I don't see any clouds on the horizon. Europe's doing better. China's doing okay. I don't see any reason to think I think the unemployment rate's going to get down to the low 6s. You know, I think it's going to be a good, happy, quiet year. Well, vague fits.
It did in that
Vague
case.
fits.
Yeah.
Do you want to make a prediction for the upcoming year?
Well, the big events that I'm looking for, Essar Steel, that's a huge thing. I'm looking at how our seaway's developing and getting them more revitalized. I think the biggest problem facing Duluth is the lack of good wage jobs for the working class and middle class. And I think that's nationwide. Our economy is the healthiest and strongest in the world, but 60–70% of the population isn't getting their share. And that we will be a perfect test case of an economy getting choked off if we don't do something to get higher wages for the majority of our workers.
All right, let's go to Ron.
Manufacturing will stay strong. Transportation will be strong. As David Ross said, the commercial construction is looking good. There are a lot of projects throughout the region, and residential construction will begin picking up. Well, residential construction.
But commercial is picking up.
Commercial picked up.
What's your prediction for the next year?
This is a tough one. I see things maybe flattening out. I'm not so sure we're going to have a year like 2014. Some of it will depend on Europe and China, and that part of it doesn't look real promising right now. And I think other, some of the factors that might pop up, maybe what happens with Cliff's natural resources. They're struggling a lot right now. When Essar comes online, and I don't think that'll be this year as they predicted, but maybe a year after, but that will change a lot of things. They'll be the low-cost producer and have some advantages. And
All right. Well, we need to get a prediction from Sakib too.
I think overall it will go well. That's what I'm considering. But again, the oil price, as I was mentioning, at a certain point it might go up, and it's hard to predict at what point it will happen. But I guess the Federal Reserve, if we think about the inflation will remain low, and Federal Reserve usually say that if it goes that 2% and above, they will try to get involved and increase the interest rate. But I don't think it will. If it happens, it will happen at the later part of the year, because the interest rate, the inflation, I think it will remain low. And but once the oil price goes up, I can imagine we have the inflation rate going up. And at that point, I guess the Federal Reserve might get involved there. So it'll be interesting to see how it works or how it plays out. But one area I think, nationwide, we have to come up with a plan like how to deal with the student debt. And it all boils down over there, when the students have that kind of huge debt, it affects the entire economy. They buy, they're delaying everything. Not buying the home, and the big ticket items we're talking about, not even getting married, taking time. And when you're talking about getting married, then they'll think about buying a home, those big ticket items comes out. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes, and I guess the East President talks about the community college, but let's see how it plays out.
They're giving me the wrap. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in.
See you next year.
Our pleasure.
And, We'll see how you did next year.
2016.
All right, thank you.
It's time now for the week's top business stories from our friends at Business North. A new Superior company has brought the safe and convenient transport of digital data to a new level. Facetto has developed a wristband that can store and encrypt up to 1 terabyte of information. The waterproof solid-state device unveiled at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas receives data via Wi-Fi. It can be used to back up computers, backup cameras, smartphones, tablets, and other devices. Now, this unit was designed locally, and city incentives will be offered to help company owners manufacture it in Superior.
Can a state lawmaker have a second job directing a lobbying firm when the legislature is out of session? That question was raised this week after State Senator David Tomassoni announced he will manage the Range Association of Municipalities and Schools and continue to represent his Chisholm district in St. Paul. Tomassoni, a Democrat, contends it's okay because he serves in a citizens' legislature where all lawmakers can have a second job. Minority Leader David Hahn, a Republican, said it's unacceptable to do both and called for Tomassoni to change his decision.
Two longtime Twin Ports printing companies have combined under common ownership. Dan and Sarah Erickson, co-owners of Arrowhead Printing in Superior, purchased service printers of Duluth in a transaction that closed December the 31st. The couple said they were outgrowing their space and capacity when they learned service printers was for sale.
They will combine printing and mailing services in Duluth and expand their digital sign, banner, and fulfillment division in Superior. Arrowhead Printing has been doing business since 1933 and Service Printers since 1950. For more on these and other stories, visit BusinessNorth.com.
If you have something to say about this week's show, give us a call. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message or send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org. And don't forget to visit the WDSE website for the latest PBS program information, updates on your favorite local shows, and news and events here at the station. And Denny, we're pretty much out of time, so can't really chit-chat. But for Denny and the staff here at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. Have a great weekend.